All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap the Mets versus Giants series as well as all the latest news and rumors in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are recorded live after every series of regular season games. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns. If you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored, you're just being starred throughout the show. We'll try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which mainly features my co-host Frank's instant post-game reactions after every single regular season game, which are titled the Mets Frankly Post-Game. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day of recording. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. That would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 157 of our show. And let's just say this is pretty much panning out how we've pretty much have expected it from the overall, let's say, face value of this division race. We knew that this was going to be a two-team race pretty much. I mean, the Marlins have definitely played some really, really good baseball recently, but right now it's pretty much a two-horse race right now in this National League East. And you knew that one team was going to get the upper hand after a series, another team's going to have the upper hand. They're just going to continue to trade jabs, and whoever has the upper hand at the end of 162, that's who's going to end up being crowned the champion of the NL East. I don't see either of these teams pulling away from each other unless they face head-to-head, which eventually they will. And right now, that's the main reason as to why we talk about this of game to game. When we're talking about some things that we have seen series to series or game to game, there have been points as to why they lose these games or why they win these games, the quality of wins. We've talked about this before, and that's the main reason as to what it sustains to in the final stretch of this season. We've talked about this for the entirety of the season. The quality of wins matters, and it really does show you the early identity of this team and what can sustain throughout a 162-game season. And what we are seeing right now, is it going to be able to hold up? I don't know if it will be able to hold up or able to sustain to them being a full-on contender. Again, we just passed through the trade deadline. If you guys missed it, we went live for the trade deadline with plenty of other Mets content creators for the last 3 hours of the trade deadline. And the Mets addressed what we expected them to address. And then there was one department that I think everybody wanted them to address, and we will get into more in that department a little bit later, that they didn't end up adding to. And I think that that's the main reason as to why everyone kind of has a little bit of a panic on themselves, no matter what position that they are in right now, because at this current moment they're 14 games over 500. They're just a half game out of first place, so it seems like a good position they are in. However, when you break this thing down of how the Mets have been winning these games, it's taken a lot more than a village, and I think that that's the main reason as to why there's so much concern of, well, yes, there's no easy wins in this league. Any team can beat any team, but there has not been a single game where you are completely assured that this team can win in the beginning of the game. There's always been some kind of a journey to get there. Even in game 2 of this series, when the Mets scored 12 runs, they still gave up 6 on the other end, and they didn't just smoothly go into that victory. There was still a little bit of chaos that you saw. So it just seems like piecing together 9 innings of a team that looks like it's a contender and a team that could possibly, be a threat in October, it just doesn't look like it on the field. And I think that's the main concern for a lot of Mets fans. It makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of departments in this team that have to obviously step up. We've talked about the offense a lot. We've talked about the runners in scoring position a lot. That's been an issue, continues to be an issue, and I don't see it basically being solved at any point. It's basically the fact that that top four needs to step up. We'll talk about the rotation because it has so many different avenues that you can go on with it, because it's definitely taken either some hits or it's definitely taking on some tasks that maybe a few of them are not going to be able to handle. We'll talk about one of these pitchers that was horrendous yesterday, and there's going to have to be a decision made really, really quick, because putting him out there every 5 days seems like malpractice at this point, because he's just completely lost. Anyways, let's get into the chat real quick of what you guys think. We got D in the chat. We've got Ricardo coming here. I don't know why my camera... I don't know why this is keeps switching in and out. That's so weird. Guys, can you... I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know why that keeps going in and out there. All right, well, it's showing up for you guys. I don't know why that's happening. We've got Gabriel in the chat right now. Truro is in the chat. Odd Villain as well. David in the chat as well, too. Good to see you guys. Okay, so you guys hear me. You guys see me on my cam. For some reason, whenever I pull a comment up, my camera just disappears for me. I don't know why that just happened. No clue, but we're just going to deal with it. Anyways, you guys, so you guys say that you hear me. That's fine. Okay, I don't know what the hell StreamYard is doing right now, but we're going to have to just work with it. Anyways, good to see everybody in the chat here. Obviously, coming off of that trade deadline stream, which was very, very eventful. I think we can all agree with things going around the league. I think a lot of people were at some point, they thought that this was going to be a little bit of a boring deadline, but I think it was very eventful. I think we saw some trades that escalated in the final hours there of guys that we didn't even think that were going to get moved, and they were definitely some featured pieces. So obviously we will get into the one acquisition that they made on deadline day, but I do want to talk a little bit about this series. Now, here's the thing. The first game of this series was basically a display of what we have seen for quite a while. You've seen David Peterson go out there, give you an outing that he's very, very familiar to giving, basically giving you a quality start every single night. The Mets offense completely stalls out, can't hit a lefty, because against left-handed pitching, they have definitely struggled a lot this year. And then, of course, the top guys struggle to get runners in, with runners in scoring position, specifically in that ninth inning, which was just ridiculous. Game 2, we see Kodai Senga continue to struggle. I'm not ready to hit the panic button just yet on Senga, but we are definitely not seeing things that we like, especially when it's coming at a really rough time. And we are continuing to see this offense have these explosions of what they are actually capable of, but then it just disappears that next day, and it continues to be inconsistent. We've talked about this offense so many times. They are consistently inconsistent. We just don't know what we're going to get on a nightly basis, and when this is the most expensive department on the team, it gets a little worrisome, especially when you are past 100 games in this season and you still can't figure out the consistency with whether it's runners in scoring position, overall continuity of them actually efficiently scoring runs, or just the overall plate approach, which is just very, very inconsistent in general. And we've talked about this so many times before that I just feel like I'm repeating myself over and over and over again. But again, there's so many departments that do need to step up. There's so many departments that just they need to figure out what they're piecing together. But again, when it comes to the departments on this team, it has to go to the offense. The offense has to step up. We know that top four needs to step up. We all know that that's where this team's biggest assets are. And from what we are seeing from that top four, we saw a little bit getting going from Francisco Lindor in this series. He looked a little bit better. Still not fantastic. We've seen plenty of, encouraging things from Pete Alonso in this series. Juan Soto has seemed to gone cold once again. Brandon Nimmo had a good series, but it seemed like just piecing it together with timely hitting, it was just as inconsistent as we've continued to see it over and over and over again. And it gets frustrating to a point of how many times are we going to talk about this? How many times are we going to identify this, identify the problem, and not find a way to find a solution? And for some reason, they just can't figure it out. And I know everybody wants to talk about the pitching side of things, but like I said, where this roster is allocated, a majority is it to the offense. And we've talked about this all year. And we will get into the pitching because there is a lot of concern to go with the pitching and how everything has continued to go. It just doesn't seem like there is any continuity offensively. Whether they do come through with a big performance, doesn't seem like they will follow it up. They look like a completely different offense every single inning, every single game, and it gets very it just gets very tedious to a point of I'm tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. I'm tired of seeing, like Dee is saying in the chat, no urgency whatsoever. We have seen stretches where this team just disappears for 5 innings. They're nowhere to be found. And for some reason, they just can't find a median with some really good talent in this lineup, which makes absolutely no sense. You have plenty of hitters that have been underperforming and maybe they have not gone to expectations. We know they haven't. But we know what the true talent is on this roster, specifically from that top 4 that we know is capable of a lot more. And it continues to be a very inconsistent bunch and very unsettling. Very unsettling each and every day for when they go to the ballpark and start off another 9 innings the next day. Because we have absolutely no idea what we are going to get. And it's really tough to say that you don't have any sure-handedness in an offense that is the most expensive part on the team. So that's my full-on takeaway of not going into any details. But to go into details, let's actually run down this series before we get into all the specifics here of this series loss to the San Francisco Giants. Now, obviously, I got to take my sip of water before I full-on run down what went on in these 3 games. So here we go with the rundown. We start off with Game 1. David Peterson would get the start, and he'd do his thing. 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts on 97 pitches. Ryan Stanek would pitch the 7th and surrender a leadoff and 1 out double to extend the Giants' lead to 3. The Mets offense would be silenced by Robbie Ray until the 7th, where Pete Alonso would launch his 23rd home run of the year to get us on the board. Rico Garcia would toss a scoreless 8th inning with a strikeout, and the Mets would rally in the bottom frame after a leadoff walk to Brandon Nimmo and a single by Francisco Lindor. Juan Soto would get the Mets within a run with an RBI single, and Pete Alonso would tie the game at 3 with a sacrifice fly. Ryan Helsley would come in for the 9th for his Mets debut and work around 2 singles to retire the side with 3 strikeouts. This game would go to extra innings. Edwin Diaz would come in for the 10th and allow the ghost runner to score on an RBI single by former Met Dominic Smith to put the Giants in front. Walks to Francisco Lindor, and Pete Alonso would load the bases in the last of the 10th, but Randy Rodriguez would get his revenge on Ronnie Mauricio by striking him out to end the game as the Mets comeback falls short in extra innings 4-3. Game 2, Kodai Senga would make the start, and he'd continue to struggle with his command of the zone while also surrendering plenty of extra base hits in the process, only going 4 innings pitched, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts on 71 pitches. The Mets would take an early lead in the first inning after a lead-off hit by pitch to Brandon Nimmo and a walk to Francisco Lindor. Pete Alonso would hit his 24th home run to give the Mets a 24th home run of the year to give the Mets a 3-0 lead, his second in the series and his 250th of his career. Down 4-3 in the fourth, Cedric Mullins would lead off with his first hit as a Met and steal second base. Brett Baty would draw a walk, and Brandon Nimmo would tie the game at 4 with an RBI single. Francisco Lindor would give the Mets the lead on an RBI infield bunt single with no one covering first base. Reed Garrett would come in for the fifth and toss a scoreless inning with a strikeout and come back out for the sixth, get the first out, and be pulled for Gregory Soto, who would finish the inning with back-to-back strikeouts. After a one-out single by Francisco Alvarez and a walk to Brett Baty, Brandon Nimmo would plate his second RBI of the day to give the Mets a 2-run lead. Francisco Lindor would add on with an RBI single of his own to make it 7-4 New York. Tyler Rogers would make his Mets debut in the seventh against his old team, and he'd work around a leadoff single to toss a scoreless frame. The Mets offense would continue to pile it on shortly after a one-out walk to Ronnie Mauricio. Cedric Mullins would get hit by the pitch. A single from Brett Baty would load the bases, and Brandon Nimmo would collect his third RBI of the day to make it 8-4 Mets, moving everyone up a base. Francisco Lindor would smoke a 2-run double to right center, and Brandon Nimmo would score on a wild pitch to extend the Mets' lead to 11-4. Brooks Raley would come in for the eighth and work around a one-out single for a scoreless inning, and the Mets would keep going. As Pete Alonso would lead off with a double and advance to third on a throwing error by Grant McKay. Jeff McNeil would drive him in with an RBI groundout, making it 12-4. Rico Garcia would pitch the ninth. He'd surrender a lead-off triple and a 2-run homer to Willy Adames to cut the Mets' lead to 6, but he'd finish the game on the next batter to even up the series in Game 2, 12-6. Game 3, Frankie Montas would make the start and struggle again, getting beat up all day. More on him later. Tossing 4+ innings pitched, 7 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts on 92 pitches. He'd exit in the fifth after walking the leadoff hitter. Austin Warren would come in to finish the inning with help of a 6-4-3 double play. Francisco Lindor would hit his 21st home run of the year, a solo shot in the first inning. Down 7-1 in the fifth, the Mets would scratch out a run after a leadoff single by Jeff McNeil. Francisco Alvarez would drive him in with an RBI double, thanks to a wild throw by Grant McKay in right field. Austin Warren would come out for the 6th, 7th, and 8th to toss a total of 4 scoreless innings with 5 strikeouts in long relief. However, Ryan Stanek would get the ninth and completely implode, loading the bases with 2 walks and a single. Dominic Smith would extend the Giants' lead with a 2-run single, and Casey Schmidt would launch a 3-run homer to put up a 5 spot in the ninth and cap off a blowout loss in the series finale to drop 2 out of 3 to San Francisco, 12-4. The Mets are now 63-49 on the season as they fall a half game behind the Phillies for first place in the National League East. Now, like I said, in the National League East, I mean, these teams are just going to continue to be ahead of each other, behind each other, ahead of each other. So, again, the positioning, we all know that the Mets are going to have to beat the Phillies by themselves. So, obviously, they're in second place right now, but we all know that the Mets and Phillies are kind of on even playing ground. Both teams have had some glaring red flags all year, and they've been fighting through them while also fighting for the division. However, this series was completely unacceptable from many different facets. Like Game 1, like I have said, and I covered all of the post games for Frank for this series, obviously with some scheduling, and that first game, again, the big guys were able to come through and tie the game later on, but they were unable to do it again. You had a runner at second base, a ghost runner, a free runner to tie the game. Your closer, Edwin Diaz, and if you want to blame it on him, you just don't know baseball. That runner came in. The object of the top of the 10th is to get 2 runs. He allowed 1 run. So all this team had to do was drive in a runner in scoring position with the top of the lineup due up. They were unable to do it. Brandon Nimmo pops up. Juan Soto pops up, continues to struggle with runners in scoring position, and then you get walks to Lindor and Pete Alonso to load the bases, and then it puts it in the hands of the kid, Ronnie Mauricio, who already had success against Randy Rodriguez, but Randy Rodriguez was able to get him with his fastball because Ronnie Mauricio got him with his slider. So obviously that was an adjustment that was able to be made, and they were able to get the best of him. But again, with the top of the order due up in the bottom of the 10th, with a ghost runner at second base, and you can't bring him in, that tells you a lot about what this offense has been doing all year, being consistently inconsistent. They get their chances. They get plenty of chances, but still, they are unable to capitalize. Pitching was not an issue. David Peterson, another great start. He's been the most reliable arm in that rotation all year, probably the most reliable arm in this rotation of the last 2 years. And for some reason, this team can't pick up the bare minimum when they get pitching performances like that. Why is that? Why is that? Because everybody told me that the top of this lineup was going to continue to produce and be a weapon of destruction all year. And I'm just seeing sparks of it somewhat, and then it disappears for the next 3 days. It's unacceptable. It can't happen. The quality of ABs that some of these guys are taking, they look like a completely different hitter one time and then a completely different hitter the next. For some reason, we're just not seeing that consistency. And I don't think we're going to continue. I don't think we're going to see it at all. I don't. I'm not confident in it at all. Not. I'm just not. And I've talked about this before. I don't blame the pitching breaking down the way that they did because this team wasn't built on pitching. You need offense. You need offense. This is a hitter's league now. You can't expect pitching to carry you through the rocks. You can't. Now, Frankie Montas, different story. We'll get into him. But, I mean, getting hot at the right time, they're getting close to the point where they got to get hot quick. And the bats have to do something. Someone's going to have to wake up. Someone. Then game 2 comes along. 12 runs go on the board. Amazing. We're back. The offense is back. And I said, no. No. Not falling for it. I'm not putting any chips in. Because I know that the next day, they will follow it up with nothing. They will follow it up with the same inconsistent approach they have had for 100+ games now. And it's not me being negative. It's not me saying that this team's not good enough. It's not me saying that this team isn't capable of doing that. It's because this is all we have seen. This is all we have seen all year. Big offensive explosion, maybe once every 10 games. Follow it up with nothing. Follow it up with inconsistent. Follow it up with another performance where they can't drive runners in with runners in scoring position. Is this not what we have been seeing all year? Or am I just continuing to just say things just to be angry and get clicks and get attention? Is this not what we've been seeing? And it's really, really hard to put on a crutch right now that the team is 14 games over 500 and still in a playoff spot. I'm so tired of having this discussion every single time. Where is the consistency? Nowhere. It seems like almost every single time it takes them, I don't know, a few innings to get going offensively. It always seems like every time when they have runners in scoring position and they threaten and they drive the pitch count up and they make the guy work for the minor victories for everyone in the back, what comes of it? Nothing. Nothing comes of it. They don't put it together. That top 4, the Fab 4 that Steve Cohen has coined them as, they haven't gotten hot at the same time. Not even 2 of them have gotten hot at the same time. This has been all year. All year long. And constantly, we talk about everybody trying to go out there and tell me what the problem is. Everybody talks about the problems on this team. And for some reason, nobody can find a solution. No one. Game 4, one of our loyal viewers here. I love Game 4. Great guy here. Say it, Carson. Lindor is trash. Lindor ain't the only issue here. Lindor's been bad. Lindor's been awful since that, what was it, the pinky toe injury or everything? I don't even know if we can really refer to that anymore. Recently, he's gotten going a little bit, but nothing to the big impression that he had last year. We're still not seeing the Francisco Lindor that we were seeing last year. He's been awful. Pete Alonso, where have you been? Since the All-Star break, this guy has been nowhere to be found. Hit 2 home runs in this series, but we have seen him come up here with runners in scoring position multiple times in this series. Failed to come through. Someone who's been really good with runners in scoring position this year. The most consistent out of that Fab Four recently has been Brandon Nimmo. And we all know Brandon Nimmo can't do it by himself because he's in the leadoff spot now. He's here to set the table. He's here to get you some extra base hits, stealing some more bases too. He's setting you up perfectly. Nimmo has been one of the bright spots of their key players recently. Soto, where are you? Where are you? I don't want to just bring up the number because I know everybody just gets completely maxed out about it, but Mr. 800 million, where are you? Knock, knock. Where are you? Where are you in these certain spots when we need you? Because again, I know how good Juan Soto is. I know how good this guy can be. We saw him torture us since he got into the league as a member of the Nationals. We know how good he is. He's in the prime of his career. He's 26 years old. He's not a rookie either. But the fact that this guy has been the worst hitter on this team with runners in scoring position makes absolutely no sense. Not to mention, he has some of the best high leverage numbers on this team. Have you guys ever noticed that? He has some of the best high leverage numbers on this team. Mostly probably has to do with walks of the overall run creation that he gives you, because he's still giving you that run creation. But when it comes to that moment, when the Mets need the $800 million man to perform, he has not been anywhere to be found. Nowhere. And that's not me hating Juan Soto and saying he's a bust and saying it's a terrible signing. I am saying step up when we need you. Where are you? I know Juan Soto's there. I know he exists. I know the Juan Soto that we all know, that we all expected to come here and perform. He has been terrible. I don't want to talk about the underlying numbers of Juan Soto and what we have seen from him. I know all of that. I know exactly what he's capable of. And it just shows you how frustrating it becomes, because it shows you that nothing's wrong. Nothing is wrong with Juan Soto. But we're not seeing him come through when we need him to come through. And I don't know how many times we can excuse this and talk about he's the unlucky hitter, he's the unlucky guy, when we continue to see him melt in these situations where he just can't come through for the team that paid him all this money to come through in these situations. I am asking, begging, desperately begging for Juan Soto to come through. Because when he does come through, he makes a ridiculous impact. He just hasn't come through. He hasn't. And it reflects badly on the offensive department here. Alonso's come up big recently, hasn't been fantastic. Lindor has even struggled with runners in scoring position this year. We haven't even talked about that. Lindor, also this year, has been one of their worst hitters with runners in scoring position. These types of situations matter. And when we're consistently seeing these guys fail, it's so hard to say, well, this team's just getting unlucky. This team is just in a position where they hit the ball hard and they just can't. No. There's been plenty of situations, where this team is just not coming through. And a lot of it has been self-inflicted on them, offensively. I just don't know how many times we can go in circles with this discussion. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Because you can see plenty of numbers with Juan Soto of how good he has been. He's produced. Timely? No, not at all. Not at all. And it sucks. It really does suck. Francisco Lindor with runners in scoring position, 648 OPS, 77 weighted runs created plus. He's also hasn't been great. We already know what I would like to say is the root of the issue with this hitting. But when it comes to the big guys, there's only so many things that you can say. They've proven enough to where they could do this on a consistent basis, and they're not doing it. It's more of the oppression of the young guys that we talk about the coaching staff. And I don't even want to get into the full articulation of the coaching staff because it's gone to so many different heights. If you guys follow me on Twitter, you're on Mets Twitter a lot, you understand what I'm talking about. But that will be a story for another day because we don't have time. We don't have time for this. But again, the big guys are going to have to step up. We know that they're going to have to. And they haven't been. So where does that lie us? Where? I don't know. Merlin in the chat saying, hot take, if/when the Mets collapse this year, Mendoza will likely lose his job. The approach is awful. And besides the bullpen and Peterson, Minaya and Senga, the rotation has been inconsistent. Listen, I've cut Mendoza a lot of slack. Okay? There's been a lot of decisions that I have not agreed with. One today, Mark Vientos is starting at first base today, which he's not a first baseman. He shouldn't even be touching the field anymore. However, I don't think the manager is as big of an impact as people think they are. I feel like if this was, 20 years ago, maybe they would look more onto the manager. Listen, I have come to a point of I don't know how many managers you want to go through until you find a perfect one, because you're not going to. Not to mention, there's a similar constant between all of these managers that they have had. You've had Lindor for, 3 different managers now. You've had Pete since the very beginning. He's had 4 different managers. Nimmo's had probably 5. He's been here longer. I mean, what hasn't changed? I don't know how many times this core needs to go through another manager. I don't agree with letting go of Mendoza, personally. I feel like the hand that he's been dealt has not been great. And a lot of it has had to do with injury. And it's really, really hard to judge, again, these bullpen decisions or judge this or judge that or go to what he goes to at one time when the offense continues to put up premium performances. Again, the most expensive part of the team should be coming through, should be producing, should not be this inconsistent. I don't see that as a Carlos Mendoza issue. I just don't. I just don't see how many managers you want to go through until you realize that the top guys just have to get their shit together. And I'm not saying Mendoza is perfect. There's been plenty that he has done that I have disagreed with. There's been plenty. But I'm not going to sit here and say that he's the problem. I'm not going to sit here and say that he is the issue of why this team is losing, because he's not. He just isn't. And I don't see eye to eye with Mendoza so much, but again, there's only so much a manager can do when you have so much invested into a team that is invested into perform. There's so many times where the Mets could have done something better that leads to a managerial decision that maybe not many people agree with. Again, I'm not going to sit here and come to bat for Mendoza. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's on Mendoza for why this team is so inconsistent. I don't. There's not many things that he does that I think factor in to this team constantly losing games. And you can disagree because everybody will always go on the rate of fire the manager. Fire the manager, this guy's got to go. Again, I just don't know how many guys you want to go through. I don't think it's a good enough crutch. Rosie K saying maybe the Mets are crumbling under the weight of expectations this year. No, when you sign Juan Soto, there's not really much you can do. Not really much you can do in terms of expectations. You're going to be expected to do so. So that's the thing. But it shouldn't be an excuse. Shouldn't be. Really shouldn't. Mendoza's a first-time manager. He was a bench coach for the Yankees. He was brought up in that role. There's a difference between rookie managers and first-time managers. We've said this before. Game 4 saying bring in Beltran so we can cheat as much as the Yankees. He would be a rookie manager too. People would be disagreeing with him too. Again, there's just no solution here. If you're going to say that, this manager's not perfect, no manager is. No manager is going to do things that you 100% agree with. I just don't think that that's as big of a factor of the Mets winning or not. A guy like Mickey Callaway, that's a different story. Guys like Luis Rojas, that's a different story. But I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, that's Mendoza's fault why this team isn't reaching the full potential. It's impossible to say it. It is impossible. It really is. And I don't think that Mendoza's job should be come into question for a top 4 that's getting paid so much to be this inconsistent. That's what their job is, to come through when it matters. On a team that is built around the offense. Did you know that this team is built around offense? It wasn't built around pitching. You couldn't tell for those first 2 months because the Mets pitching was an unsustainable level of remarkable to start off the year. The offense was just hanging around. Now we have had the offense hanging around for more than 100 games. So I just don't know how many times until we just lay in our own shit at this point. And they realize what the issue is. And I'm not going to say here and say that I know the issue. I know what the issue is inside that clubhouse. But there's just some type of message that isn't being sent, whether it is from the leaders on this team, whether it is from coaching, whether it is just from guys with actual experience and the veterans in that clubhouse. I don't know. I just think it's a little weak to put the manager on the hot seat. I just do. And I don't think that his job is in danger. I don't think it should be in danger. I don't, like, there's so many other problems on this team that the manager is, I don't know, 7th right now on that list. Things that don't really apply to him. And I understand he's a leader in that clubhouse. And the young guys or anybody is going to look up to him. But again, there's only so many messages that you can send as a manager until it's actually executed on the field. And there's plenty of things on this roster and roster construction where people point to David Stearns. And that's fine. If you want to talk about some of the guys that he brought in, we'll talk about one in a second. We all know where I'm going with this. We'll talk about one. But again, a lot of this roster, he inherited. He inherited a lot of this roster. And he has yet to make a decision. If you want to just list them off one by one on this 26-man right now. Nimmo, inherited. Lindor, inherited. Alonso, inherited. McNeil, inherited. Vientos, inherited. Alvarez, inherited. Ronnie Mauricio, inherited. Beatty, inherited. Marte, inherited. David Peterson, inherited. Kodai Senga, inherited. Edwin Diaz, inherited. Reed Garrett, inherited. Brooks Raley re-signed but inherited. And then you have Dom Hamill, who they actually called up today, which I'll get into him in a second. Inherited. So again, a majority of this team either might be moved or could be moved, but they haven't been moved because they can't find anybody better. Or these guys just have to perform. There's been a lot of turnover. I get it has. But these guys have to perform. I think it all comes down to how long can you criticize, whether it's the transactions going on or the management that's going on, when you got to just hold the players accountable. This is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Now, it's not to the extreme of what we've seen what the Yankees are dealing with, but that's not a consolation prize. Like, I do think that the young guys do get held accountable when they mess up. However, I think that the veterans on this team, there's a little bit of a disconnect as compared to last year. McNeil inherited as well. Inherited twice. And not really movable. There's not many movable parts that you can just get rid of. It's really hard for me to say who is at fault and who is this, because there's plenty of things at fault. And a lot of different departments, a lot of different struggles for this team. You can point to so many different culprits. And that's the main reason as to why I can't just sit here and say, well, Stearns is the main problem. Mendoza is the main problem. Guys are accountable for different types of things. A bullpen move that went haywire, that would be on Mendoza. A signing like Joey Wendell, that would be on David Stearns. No one's going to be perfect. We'd said nobody is going to be perfect. When it consistently is terrible moves, like a certain GM we had before, that don't think about anything short-term or long-term, that's when we start calling for their job. But it hasn't been, well, everything is consistently this guy's fault. M-Easy saying, so Stearns can't be held accountable because of what he inherited. I mean, a majority of this team he has inherited. That's been a majority of this payroll. But no, Stearns should be held accountable, especially for one move we're going to talk about. I'll get into that. Don't worry. I'll get there. Fasten your seatbelt. I'll get there. But again, it's hard to just sit here and point fingers when one department has been clearly lollipopping it throughout the entire year. And that's been the offense. That's what it has been. Some other notes from this series. Good to see Francisco Alvarez continuing to get into the swing of things. He had 2 RBI doubles in that last game. It kind of was glossed over by the fact that the Mets got completely blown out. But he has been taking some really, really good ABs since returning from AAA. And this is obviously a small sample size, so take this with a grain of salt. But I will give it for the people who want to see the numbers. He's come back from AAA. He came back, I think it was, the Angels series. Since then, he's slashing .321, .441, .607 with a 194 weighted runs created plus. Now, is that going to sustain? Probably not. But it's good to see him having competitive ABs, looking a lot like the catcher that we have seen when he first came up here. He's got his yearly weighted runs created plus up to 112 right now, which is 12% above the league average. The power has not really come up as much. He has one home run since. I'd like to see starting to see that power as we get closer and closer to the final stretch of this season. But it's been good to see him take better ABs because he just looked completely lost at the plate before he was sent down earlier on this season. Defensively, he looks a lot better too. Can't lie on that. Looks a lot better defensively behind the plate. Blocking balls, a lot better. Receiving, a lot better. And it seemed like the defensive aspect of it was more of emphasis when they sent him down. But we also saw the bat start to grow a little bit. Pretty sure when he came back here, his blocks above average, if you're looking at Baseball Savant, were -2. They have now gone to neutral, which is +0. So he's definitely produced in the blocking sense defensively. So that's been very, very impressive. Good to see him back into the swing of things. Is he going to reach the height of what he reached in 2023? I don't know. Who knows? I'm just hoping that we see a more consistent hitter. That's what I want to see. I just want to see a consistent bat that doesn't disappear. So far, he's produced at a consistent level. It's been a small sample, but it's been a consistent level, which is really good. Very encouraging. From a catcher we expected to be an offensive catcher. Game 4 saying it looks like Alvarez gives himself one home run string for the first strike, then tightens up and just tries to get hits, which is fine. I'd rather you take your big hacks at the beginning of the AB than, at the end when you're in 2-strike mode. We obviously have talked about Juan Soto and his 2-strike approach, and it's a lot different. A little bit of a different batting stance, too. So we'll see. We will see. He's walking a lot more. He looks better. So shout out to Francisco Alvarez. He had a really good series. We'll get into Cedric Mullins a little bit later. Tyler Rogers, nasty. Let's just say that. I want to see how they utilize this, if he's going to be seen as just a pure back-end guy, or if he's going to be brought in as a matchup guy who can face right-handers. I don't know. We do have some depth in this bullpen now, so it's definitely encouraging with what they emphasized at this deadline with bringing in Soto and bringing in Taylor, bringing in Helsley. I'm excited for what they do. I am very, very excited to see what all three of them do in that bullpen. I think it's going to be a huge strength for them. And when you are coming into these situations where the Mets need to hold the game, you're going to need a good bullpen. You're going to need a very heavy set bullpen. And the back end of that bullpen is strong. The back four of Soto, Rogers, Helsley, and Diaz. That's a playoff caliber bullpen right there. Now, Ryan Stanek. Let's add in just Ryan Stanek for a second. I think we're getting very, very close to a point where they're going to have to make a decision on Ryan Stanek. Ryan Stanek was somebody that I've wanted on the Mets for multiple years. I've talked about it before. However, we've gotten into the stretch now with him where not only has he been not throwing strikes consistently, but we are just seeing him mislocate over and over and over again. We were also seeing 100 plus on his fastball that he uses a lot. So a lot of these guys are going to hunt fastball. They should use a little bit less because a lot of his secondary stuff is good too. But there just has not been an adjustment there. I don't know how long Stanek has with this team. I don't know if they're going to, maybe call somebody up from the minors. Dominic Hamill was called up, but I don't think he's going to be the official one. Could that be Sproat or McLean to come up here in long relief to replace somebody like Stanek? If they do something like that, that would be fine. But again, Stanek, he is a pending free agent. He's been the most inconsistent arm in that bullpen. He really has. It's very telling. Very, very telling. And I've seen the best of Ryan Stanek when he was with the Astros. Hasn't been able to really unharvest that. Because we know the stuff is there. We know it is. But harvesting it has been a real challenge for Ryan Stanek. And one thing I will say, he's run into some tough luck. He has. I do think that he has run into some tough luck. However, when you're extending the inning so much, walking hitters at a near career high rate, the strikeouts are down, there's only so much that you can do. Only so much they can do. And I don't know if the Mets are seeing this as a crutch with him, seeing his peripherals. Because, right now, this guy has a over 5 earned run average. He's got a FIP of 3.84. Expected ERA of 3.76. So again, is there a little bit more where he pushes and they continue because they know that he has good stuff? Maybe. He's got a career high in batting average on balls in play. But his inability to miss bats has been very, very concerning, especially with this explosive stuff he does have, where he can reach 101 miles an hour. He also has great secondary stuff, which doesn't use enough. He has a good slider. He has a really good split as well. We know he's got the swing and miss stuff. But when we're constantly seeing these outings of, he's got 40 pitches to throw. Like Ricardo was saying here, Stanek is very difficult to watch when he pitches. His innings last at least 30 minutes. Yeah. He's wasting a lot of bullets. He gets hit hard a lot. He still has the swing and miss stuff. That's the frustrating part about it. Throwing it for strikes consistently, locating it properly, command all over the place. All over the place. Something that you just don't want. I know you had that comment of, I'm going to be pitching in the 4th inning with this bullpen loading up. Of what we've been seeing consistently with this team. Again, you can't like put yourself in those situations. I just don't think that Stanek can be trusted at this point. I just don't. And it sucks because he was one of my favorite arms when he was with Houston. However, that time is long gone. He's been a Met for, I don't know, he's pitched a good amount of innings as a Met. He was here last year, good in the postseason. Maybe he turns it on in the postseason again. But the Mets were right to reload this back end of the bullpen and kind of put Stanek in that low leverage, middle relief role. Makes sense. I mean, to put him down the pecking order, it makes sense to do it. He really has not been good. I really like Stanek. I like his stuff. But just because you like his stuff doesn't mean that he executes it properly. And he may be one of the odd men out. I don't know. Or maybe they just hold on to him. I have no clue. But I really would not be opposed if the Mets moved on from Stanek. Because down the stretch of the season, if you have a black hole in your bullpen, with all these close games that the offense has been putting them into, there's no use. Stanek just doesn't belong in those situations. And it's sad, because I do think he's a lot better than what he's displayed. But that's that. It's what it is. Game 4 saying Stanek needs a 2-week vacation. We shouldn't need him with all the relief Stearns got us. Exactly. That's what I mean. Like his role is going to be lower. But the depth of the bullpen, when we have starters not going deep into games like we saw in this series, you're going to need to go to relievers like him. Because not every reliever is going to be available. You can't just keep calling guys up from AAA to eat some innings to keep you in the game. And we'll see what Dominic Hamill ends up doing, which I don't think is going to be much. I really don't. I don't really have much confidence in Dom Hamill. Haven't for the last 2 years. Anyways, let's wrap up what we saw from this series the best way we know how with some studs and duds. I have one specific stud, one specific dud. I'll shout out some other ones, but the stud of this series, I don't know if I'm just going to sit here with recency bias, but it's been now the second time that this has happened. So I'm going to give it to Austin Warren. Austin Warren was a complete dog for the Mets yesterday. 4 scoreless innings, keeps the Mets in the game before it got completely out of hand with Ryan Stanek just completely imploding. But this is not the first time that he does it. I'm going to jog everyone's memory. Does everybody remember when Griffin Canning went down with the ruptured Achilles? And the Mets, obviously, it was in like the 3rd inning. So they went to Austin Warren to come in. He gives you 3 scoreless innings, sets you up, and I believe the Mets won that game. So this is now the second time that he has done this, where he's been able to mop things up, back up the starter, and he's done a really good job of it. Now, do I think that Austin Warren is a future piece of this team? No. But for AAA depth, he's been impressive. He has been very, very impressive. He's been able to throw strikes, and he's been able to administer a lot of outs, too. Some swing and miss stuff too. He's been pretty impressive. Not to mention I'm pretty sure he's an undersized guy. So the fact that he does get, I think he does get a decent amount of extension for a small guy. I'm pretty sure he's like 6'1". So he's definitely, in spurts has been, a lifesaver for this team. And once again, he did a really, really good job. Performance-wise, you could put Pete Alonso there, but there's also been some really rough ABs from him in this series too. I could put Nimmo there as well. He was good in all three of these games. Defensively too. Lindor started to wake up a little bit, but nothing of note of him being a stud. I can put Francisco Alvarez in there because he had a really good series too. David Peterson can get the nod too, if you want. But as for the dud category, this has been taken right out of my mouth here by Ricardo, saying Montas and Senga both duds. You can put Senga there because Senga has not looked good at all. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat around it. I'm not really worried about Senga going forward. I think he will eventually figure it out. But then there's the other guy. And that being Frankie Montas. I don't know. And listen, Ricardo's saying, I know you're about to unload on Montas, but please don't leave Senga out. He has been just as big of a disappointment. I do agree. Senga has a little bit more of the track record, which is why I'm just going to let him be for now. If we get another rough start from him, then we're going to get into a little bit of a deep discussion. I also want my co-host to be here for that. Let's get into Frankie Montas, okay? Frankie Montas has made 7 starts as a New York Met. Not all of them have been bad. They haven't been all terrible. But they've all had a lot of things in common, where he's just not able to go deep into games, or we're just seeing a bunch of garbage and garbage sequencing over and over and over again from him. Montas obviously started the year on the injured list, missed 3 months with a lat strain. He came back. Ever since then, he's been basically what we have been expecting. But now it's come to a point where it's getting a little bit worse as to where he is the weakest of links. Frankie Montas, across his first 7 starts of the season, just horrendous. A 6.68 earned run average. Not great peripherals in general. Giving up so many home runs. Very home run prone. The strikeouts are down. He's throwing more strikes, but not enough strikes at all. And the sad part is that we are seeing contact management that has been a little bit better than we probably thought. Getting a decent amount of chases with his splitter, which is at a 114 stuff plus, which is his highest graded pitch. Not getting hit as hard. Exit velocities are down. Giving up a lot of barrels, though. The barrel zone is on full display for this guy. He's in the 16th percentile with that. Can't keep the ball on the ground as a sinker baller. And a lot of that has to do with the numbers against his sinker, where he's thrown 189 sinkers this year so far. And hitters have registered a 398 expected weighted on base average, which is quality of contact. That's an elite level for hitters against his sinker. They have been crushing his sinker all year. And so far. And I'm sure that was what was happening in those rehab starts. The fastball velocity, it's still mid-90s to high 90s. However, it has regressed to a point where it's nearly an unusable pitch for him. An 85 stuff plus. Let's just come to a point where I want to explain how big of a regress this is with Frankie Montas' fastball. Frankie Montas' fastball, obviously was never his signature pitch. Never was. Obviously, he was more of a sinker. But he was able to set things up with his fastball pretty well, getting swings and misses with his splitter. That's basically how you do it. With an off-speed pitch from your fastball, they kind of look the same, and then they don't. His fastball, originally, when he was with the A's or with the A's or when he was traded to the Yankees or whatever, was an above average fastball. You're looking at a 105 stuff plus on that fastball. He goes to the Yankees for another year, 97. Last year, it was 93. This year, 85. Now, stuff plus is not everything. But when you have a four-seam fastball that has been getting, completely mislocated, tunnel that with a splitter that you need to get the most chases on, not to mention the contact management of your sinker that's getting completely destroyed. He's looked like a lost cause at this point. A lost cause. So what exactly do they do here? Just wait for him to figure it out? Because if this was May, I'd be okay with it. I'd be like, all right, let him go. Let him do his thing. Let him figure it out. It is August. August. And we are seeing an unplayable starting pitcher, an unstartable starting pitcher. He drives so many he drives up so many full counts. He misses many pitches that don't even go out of the ballpark but should. He's way too home run prone, like I just said. He doesn't throw strikes consistently. Even though he's not even walking guys, driving up too many full counts, not getting ahead of the count enough. His command of the zone sucks. He's not good. He has absolutely no idea where that ball is going. Nowhere. And this has always been the silver lining with Frankie Montas of, well, he has the stuff. He's got to put it together. He has the stuff. He can put it together. Like I just said, the stuff is regressing. The stuff has completely regressed, and it's continued to get worse. So I don't know how we're just going to sit here and say, well, let him figure it out. Let him keep going. Because we see a little bit more of the swing and miss numbers. Pitch by pitch, this guy has no idea where the ball is going. And what happens there? That's where you end up getting 4-inning outings. It's where you get him not even getting out of the 5th inning and taxing the bullpen. Why is Dominic Hamill up here? Dominic Hamill hasn't had a really good season. He's definitely fallen off recently, similar to Montas, actually. Why is he up here? Because the starter can't go deep into the games. A lot of that has to do with Frankie Montas. Clay Holmes has had his struggles going deep into games. He's a first-year starter, so that's kind of some things that I expect. Kodai Senga has struggled. We'll get into Senga if this continues. But Frankie Montas, what a disaster. I tried so hard to be patient. I tried. I really tried so hard from the rehab starts where we were not getting good news. From these first starts where he wasn't going deep into games. I was trying so hard to be patient. But I am running out of patience. It is becoming malpractice to put this guy out there every 5 days. It's not just the fact of the results that he is giving you. It's the fact that he is a guaranteed will not get out of the 5th inning. Will not give you a quality start. And he's not the only pitcher, to be honest. David Peterson's been the only guy who has consistently pitched into the sixth inning and finished the sixth inning. However, it comes to a point of, is this actually fixable? And we've seen enough of Frankie Montas, not only as a Met, but in his career, where it's just not working out. He's too inconsistent. He's way too rough around the edges to figure things out. And I think that we've come to a point where, is this salvageable? I don't know. Do I think that he's going to get DFA'd? No, I don't. Because they're going to be paying him probably next year as well. He has a player option. And I think that, looking back in hindsight, I know a lot of people will say, well, they should have brought back Severino. They should have brought back Jose Quintana. Here's the thing. If you want to argue that, fine. Go ahead. They probably could have been better options, especially in health-wise, because they've been healthy all season. However, I don't think that would have solved anything. I don't. Severino going to a workload where he goes deep into games, he struggled with that last year too. Jose Quintana, that's a 5-and-fly guy. Even though the last month of the season, he was extraordinary, and we probably did not make it to the playoffs without him. And I credit Jose Quintana for that roller coaster of a season that he put us through last year. I don't think that would have solved much. Maybe it would have helped a little bit. But I said this on Twitter earlier before I went live. The Mets' issue isn't quality of starts. It's quantity of innings. And Jose Quintana this year, he hasn't even pitched 100 innings. And we're in August. And I think he's been relatively healthy all year. The Mets need volume. That's what they need. So I don't know if you can look in hindsight and say that. And I'm not going to say that I'm going to sit here and try to justify them bringing in Frankie Montas, because I don't think that was the right move either. Obviously, it wasn't the right move. What a disaster. What a complete and utter disaster this guy has been. I'm left speechless. I really am. I don't know how you can consistently be this awful from pitch to pitch. Every time this guy gets up 0-2, it always drives up to a full count. Like I said, the fastball, so hittable. Very hittable. Sinker, getting crushed. Getting destroyed. It's a mess. This is a complete mess. And we even were talking about the whole situation with Frankie Montas. And I'm not going to sit here and speculate of what is going on here. But it seems like even Carlos Mendoza has had it. Even Carlos Mendoza is getting tired of Frankie Montas. This tweet from John Harper yesterday, around this time yesterday, saying Mendoza sounded like he's seen enough of Montas for a while. And rightfully so. Basically sidestepped a question of whether he stays in the rotation. Sproat and McLean should take his spot next time around. Listen, I don't know what they end up doing. And I'm hoping that this leash is short. I don't want to see him make a start ever again. I really don't. I'm done. I've seen enough of Frankie Montas to know what he is capable of. And it ain't much. And I hate saying this 7 starts in, because there's been times where I've criticized starters and then they started to pick it up right after I criticized them. But this is the Montas we've seen throughout his entire career. It's not like we're just sitting here, this guy's regressed. This guy is not this guy anymore. I just don't know how to explain it. You just can't continue to see blowups like this and see nothing near quality starts every 5 days in the middle of a playoff race. Carlos Mendoza, 2 minutes ago, actually, just said that the Mets are considering using an opener in front of Frankie Montas on Saturday in Milwaukee. So Montas, it looks like he's going to pitch again. But what if this doesn't go well? What's the next move? Because you don't have months ahead of you to make these decisions. You've got multiple weeks. You're getting to the final stretch here. They have to make a decision. And I'm going to tell you right now, visually, this is not a fun watch. This is a laboring watch to watch Frankie Montas take the mound every 5 days, and he's only made 7 starts. That is how exhausted I am watching this guy pitch. Just a complete whiff by David Stearns. Complete whiff. And I don't see how it is salvageable, to be honest. I don't. It really has nothing to do with underlying numbers or what he can provide going forward. I am really just not seeing anything encouraging from this guy. Really am not. Nothing really has been encouraging. He just looks like a shell of himself, if there ever was a himself at one point. Because we know he's had some highs. He had a 200 strikeout performance, I think it was in 2021. That was probably his career year. Pitched his most innings. He's been banged up, hasn't been dependable. And when you put him on the mound, you're almost guaranteed that the guy will just blow up. And that is something you can't have in a playoff rotation. That's something that you can't have on a playoff team that is trying to make the playoffs. You can't have that on a team that is supposedly World Series caliber. Just a complete swing and a miss by David Stearns. And it's very, very disappointing. I tried to give it the benefit of the doubt. I tried to give it time. But I think at this point, we know exactly who Frankie Montas is. And what he is at best, he's a number 5 starter. And at worst, he's unplayable. You can't put him out there. Nearly impossible to do so. Why would you? For what reason? And it really comes to the point of, do they make a call for, Nolan McLean? Do they bring up Brandon Sproat? I think Sproat will be the first guy to come up here. Do I think that solves anything? Probably not. Probably not. Because we all know that there's going to be an innings limit there too. Sproat has a career high in innings this year. Same thing goes for McLean. So you're going to have the same issue. Which asks us the question of, was starting pitching a priority at the trade deadline, or was it bullpen? Because I would have liked to see them trade for a starting pitcher. I wasn't expecting them to do it. I wasn't. Because David Stearns talked about it, of the market, and obviously he's more familiar with it with us because we're not in the office, said it's really hard to acquire starting pitching right now at this time of the season. And the message that sent to me was, I don't think they're getting a starter. I've said it multiple times on this show. It's probably the least likely thing that they did. I think that there's pieces that'll fall into place, like Kodai Senga, who has been rough since coming back from the injured list. We have to admit, I think that piece is going to fall into place. That one's going to be, I think he'll be fine. Clay Holmes is another guy. Does he move to the bullpen? I don't know. Who's worthy of going to the bullpen? I think it's probably Montas. Makes a little bit more sense there. Because Clay Holmes can at least give you quality 5 innings. They are a journey of 5 innings, but he can at least put out quality and keep you in the game. I don't know. I just feel like there probably was something missing there. I don't think the Mets are going to drop or end up falling short because of the pitching. Because if you're relying on your starting pitching to carry you to a World Series, you're going to be waiting a long time. This is a hitting man. This is a hitting league now. You need hitting. Guys need to come through. This is a power and pitching game. Power from the offensive side and power from the pitching side, meaning relievers, bullpen. Rosie K saying it seems like Holmes has run out of gas. Very possible. Very possible. You know, could this be just the headline of him just adjusting to being a starting pitcher? I don't know. I really don't know. But he's definitely reached an innings limit where he's been fatigued. So hopefully they're, I don't know, they figure it out, or is he just going to continue to fight through it? There's a lot of question marks in this rotation. I hope they answer a few of them. You guys in the chat, I asked you in the poll, what starter are you most concerned with? It seems like a majority are saying Montas, which I would say is the correct answer. Senga is second place, and Holmes is third place. So vote on the poll if you want to put in your 2 cents of which starter are you the most concerned with. The only guy that seems to be the most stable has been David Peterson. It's weird saying that 2 years later of what my thoughts were on David Peterson to what they are now. But he's been a savior for this team every 5 days. That difference between going 5 innings or barely going 5 innings to 6 innings goes a long way. And it seems like David Peterson's been the only one to do so. But when it comes to Frankie Montas, it's unwatchable. And I'm hoping that they come to a solution really quick. And hopefully they pull the plug if this continues to get out of hand. I wouldn't mind if they pulled the plug right now and just completely bought him out, because there's just no need for games right now. I had a little bit of hope with maybe the upside in his stuff. Stuff has regressed. Command is terrible. I don't know how many times that they can just put this guy out there every 5 days. It becomes malpractice at one point. It really does. And I think we've all figured out what Frankie Montas is, and that is not a dependable starting pitcher. Is he a dependable reliever? I don't know. Do I want to figure it out? No, I don't care. I don't care enough. And I do believe, going back all the way to spring training, considering how this is all unraveled, I do believe that Montas came to spring training out of shape. Anybody else agree with that? I think he came to spring training completely out of shape, and instantly hurt himself. And that was pretty much the trajectory that we were on for the rest of the season. And I'm not going to use that as an excuse because we've seen Frankie Montas be very, very banged up in the past. But in the most irresponsible way possible, he comes to camp. First day, he's completely out of shape. Completely out of shape. Well, most pitchers get a lot of work done in the offseason, even though pitchers and catchers report at some point. And listen, this is just speculation. This is not true. I'm not going to say that it's completely true. But from the sequencing of how it's gone on, wouldn't be surprised. I really would not be surprised if he came to spring training completely out of shape. And it began from the jump, a nightmare of an addition that he has been since he signed with the Mets. Disappointing. A shame. A shame, too, because at one point, Frankie Montas was a very talented arm. But now that we're just seeing this complete shell of him, where nothing's improving and things are just continuing to get worse. I'm running out of answers. Just not seeing it. And it's scary when you're going into a playoff race. So hopefully they figure it out. If Montas blows up after an opener, I'm going to be shouting from the rooftops to get rid of this dude. Just a complete whiff. And I hope that there is, and I think there will be, I hope there is accountability from David Stearns publicly if this continues to go south. I hope so. I hope he addresses it. Because it's been very, very obvious that Montas has not been a good addition. Tried to give it the benefit of the doubt, but it is August and I'm running out of patience. So, Montas is definitely not my favorite player right now, at all. And I just don't see this getting any better at this point. Hasn't been good at all. Anyways, speaking of the health, pitchers, rotation, let's get into the injury report real quick. Obviously, Frank is not here, so I'm going to have to fill in for him. We've got 3 major injury report updates here. We'll start off here with Mets reliever Max Kranick, as he has avoided the need for Tommy John surgery and has opted to undergo flexor repair surgery as an alternative. With the 28-year-old right-hander undergoing Tommy John surgery less than 3 years ago, this procedure betters Kranick's chances of returning earlier in the 2026 season. Mets starting pitcher Paul Blackburn finished his final rehab start on Saturday night for AAA Syracuse, tossing 5 1/3 innings pitched, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts on 93 pitches. Mets president of baseball operations David Stearns stated that there will be a decision made later this week on Blackburn's role, as the 31-year-old right-hander could possibly be activated this week as a potential long relief option in the Mets bullpen. Mets starting pitcher Tylor Megill threw a live batting practice session yesterday afternoon at Citi Field. The session included 2 up-downs and around a total of 20 pitches thrown. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza clarified that Megill is expected to throw one more 2-inning session on Thursday before he progresses to a minor league rehab assignment. The 29-year-old right-hander has been on the injured list since mid-June due to a right elbow strain. So obviously the pitching for updates, Blackburn and Megill, again, they have plenty of different guys who are here, and not many spots, especially with how they filled in the bullpen during this deadline. Again, I don't know what they're going to try to do. Are they going to try to stack guys on top of each other? I don't know. I really don't know. What does that include? Montas, Megill, sharing a start? Does that include Holmes moving to the bullpen and then calling up one of the young guys? I don't know. But there's a decent amount of roster spots right now that are not going to be cleared out. You're not going to, especially on this bullpen side. Could Ryan Stanek be the guy out for somebody like Blackburn or McGill? And listen, I'm not beating the drum for either of these guys. We all know that they're, wet paper bags at this point. But could that be the move? I know Dom Hamill will probably be optioned down after he pitches one outing because they're going to need a fresh arm. So who will be the corresponding moves for guys like McGill and Blackburn? You're definitely cutting edge here. Could it be Frankie Montas getting DFA'd? I don't know. Could it be that? Could it be Ryan Stanek getting DFA'd? Could it just be Dominic Hamill? Brooks Raley ain't going to go anywhere. Your 3 acquisitions aren't going anywhere. Edwin Diaz ain't going anywhere. Reed Garrett's not going to go anywhere. Stanek is out of options. So it probably will be him. Because you have 2 guys that possibly will be coming back. Blackburn, McGill, I don't know, maybe it figures itself out when he comes back. Because he still has to have a few rehab appearances. And I'm not banging the drug for any of these guys. I don't think they're anything special. But again, what could be the moves here? Because you have a surplus of pieces that eventually you're going to have to make a decision on. Jay-Z saying Blackburn will get DFA'd before Montas, in my opinion. Who knows? I don't know. I have no clue. We will figure that out, I guess, as we go. But I'm intrigued to see what we get. Gabe for War, no, I don't think they're going to be signing Marcus Stroman. Sorry, that's not going to happen. I can almost assure you that's not going to happen. Anyway, speaking of guys that they do have and brought in, let's talk a little bit about this trade deadline and kind of put a bow on it. Now, obviously, we have talked about Gregory Soto. We've talked about Tyler Rogers. We've talked about Ryan Helsley, of guys that they have acquired. There was one other guy that was acquired on deadline day that we didn't get to do a deep dive into, and that being Cedric Mullins, who is filling in the center field role now, and the Mets traded for on deadline day from the Baltimore Orioles. Now, I do want to do a little bit of a rundown because we all know that center field has been a little bit of a need for this team for quite a bit. You've been platooning McNeil and Taylor in center field, who McNeil is not a traditional center fielder and shouldn't be playing center field. And then Tyrone Taylor, who we know is not an everyday player. Good defender. That's about it. So as for two-way, Cedric Mullins was the one that they went to. They were attached to Luis Robert, did not end up getting him, and they went to get Cedric Mullins, who is sure-handed up the middle. The Mets sent over pitching prospect, hard thrower, Ramon Gomez, Anthony Nunez, and Chandler Marsh over to the Orioles in exchange for Cedric Mullins at the deadline. Now, there's nothing that completely comes off the page with Mullins, but he's at least a sturdy enough bat to where he doesn't have to just completely bat ninth and just provide things in center field. Maybe he can bat 7, maybe he can bat 8th. Nothing special. Contact rates are solid, makes a decent amount of contact. Not the best quality of contact, let's just say that. Doesn't really hit the ball hard that well. Average exit velocity. He's a free agent at the end of this year. He's making $9 million that is prorated, so that doesn't really matter. The one thing that is pointed out is he has reverse splits. He's slashing 298, 390, 476 with a 143 weighted runs created plus against left-handed pitching as a left-handed batter. He has an 89 weighted runs created plus against right-handed pitching. So reverse splits there. Obviously, against lefties, he may be a little bit higher in the lineup. Who knows? Defensively, he doesn't have the best arm, but he does have a lot of range. +3, outs above average, ninth among center fielders in almost 800 innings in center field this year. He's 30 years old, 5'8", 175, former 13th round pick by the Orioles, who got all the way up to the majors. This year, in totality, has a 103 weighted runs created plus, 15 homers, which is a lot better than what you're getting from Tyrone Taylor. I think that's more than Taylor and McNeil combined. Granted, McNeil has missed a decent amount of the season, about a month. But 15 home runs, 49 runs batted in, 15 stolen bases as well. So he's been 15-15 this year. So overall, a solid player. Is it a game changer? Not at all. But definitely helps you in Citi Field, covering a lot more ground. Arm-wise, I don't think it's much of an upgrade. I don't think that this was the first choice. I think Robert was the first choice, who also had some rough around the edges factors. We've talked about that before. Cedric Mullins, as well, one thing that has been of notice for this team this year, so we're going to point it out. With runners in scoring position, a 111 weighted runs created plus, a 777 OPS, which is really good. That would probably be like third best on this team. So situationally, he's been good. In different types of measures, Cedric Mullins has been a quality player that can fit a model for this team and help them out. In the margins, however, it's not really a game-changing bat, which I think had more upside in Luis Robert, who the White Sox just did not want to give up, or the asking price was just a little too high. Seems like he does provide power against both platoons, very, very similar against both platoons. This isn't a complete, this isn't a complete game-changing piece, but it does help you. It does either make the lineup deeper or help you out defensively. Game 4 saying he has speed. Can he lead off? I don't see him leading off at all. It's not going to happen, especially with how top-heavy this team is, and you need to get the most plate appearances from Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso, and Soto. But he does have a decent amount of speed. Can definitely help you on the base paths. Sprint speed in the 82nd percentile, which I think has pretty much been the same throughout his career. Yeah, it started off a little bit quicker, but he's definitely still in that realm of a stolen base threat. So hopefully, if he does get on base, there is going to be the green light to steal, which I think would be huge. We saw him score all the way from second, which is something that this team has lacked a lot. They have a lot of lack of speed. Maybe Lindor and Taylor can do it. We've talked about Taylor, not an everyday player. So, again, if he gets on base, barely does. We'll see. But again, it does come to show that the Mets needed to fill the margins with this piece. Was it the only piece that they needed? No. I feel like there probably would have been somebody else that I would have gotten as well in addition. But the DH situation is a little bit hands tied here. So we'll see how it goes. Either way, it's a plus addition. It's an upgrade. It's not fantastic. It's not amazing. I feel like it raises the floor a little bit better of this team more than it raises the ceiling. It's not a bad addition, but it's not anything perfect. And that's the main reason as to why I think people are a little underwhelmed with it. But we'll see. One thing that is very, very encouraging, I've talked about pulling fly balls a lot. He has the highest pulled fly ball rate among like any hitter this year at 30.5, which is like top of the top. Like that's top 5% type of stuff right there. So maybe he does maximize a little bit more power from the bottom part of the order. But I don't think it's going to be anything world-beating with the bat. but he can give you those tools if you need him to give you those tools. So again, it's a solid addition. It's not amazing. But it does help. It does help this team in the margins, where you get an everyday version of somebody like Tyrone Taylor who can give you a little bit more with the bat. So I'm definitely okay with it. There's details about him that I like. There's some things that I'm like, yeah, this is not great. We've seen him go through some cold stretches this year. He had a phenomenal start to the season, a 162 weighted runs created plus in April, 53 in May, 35 in June. He had a really bad cold streak. Then he started to heat up in July. And then so far in August, he hasn't been amazing, but he hasn't really played that much in August. So it's been an up and down season for him. But again, raising the floor just for the fact of you can't raise the ceiling with bringing somebody in like Luis Robert. I was a little bit skeptical when we saw that, but we all knew that they needed something sure-handed in center field, and that's definitely what they got from Cedric Mullins. Again, it's not perfect, but it's not something that I would just completely throw out of the window because, you know, his batting average is low, or this is low, or this isn't great. I think he can help this team. Do I think that it will be, you know, to a certain degree of some other deadline additions we've had before? No. But I do think it is better. It's an upgrade from Tyrone Taylor. And you gave up almost nothing of note. The best piece that you gave out was probably Ramon Gomez, who is in low A and has basically touched 104 miles an hour, but he's so wild. He's had multiple Tommy John surgeries already. And then the other two pitchers, Anthony Nunez and Chandler Marsh, nothing really incredibly special. So the return on it was not really that big. And if it ends up not working out, it ends up not working out. We'll see. Marcus in the chat saying, I would allow Mullins to lead off if Nimmo reaches a point where he needs to sit out a game or two. Maybe, but I don't think that you want a catalyst being in the fashion of Mullins. Maybe when he was a little bit younger, like when he was with the Orioles, he made a lot more sense to be a leadoff hitter. But this team has a situation where their top four hitters need to get the most plate appearances, or you're not going to get the most offense. And I know it's been inconsistent. We did an entire rant about it being inconsistent. But that's the best position that you put them in to win. They finally found a formula of Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, Alonso that they like. I don't think changing that would really do much. But if there is somebody out, and Mullins is, let's say, on a hot streak, if you want to lead him off, you can lead him off. Why not? Because he does have the speed. If you want to bat him ninth, you can bat him ninth too. Turn over the lineup as well. Give you a competitive AB from the bottom part of the lineup. Get on base, steal, and put the top guys in position to drive him in. The only way to get better at this runners in scoring position situation is to create the opportunities first. Cedric Mullins could do that. We'll see. We'll see what he's able to do as a member of the New York Mets. And if not, I don't know. I don't think it's a bad move. I don't think it's game-changing at all. But it can help this team. Definitely could help this team. As I am noticing a big typo as we get closer and closer to this segment of what we are going to do next, and that's obviously previewing this upcoming series against Cleveland, not San Francisco. Can't believe I went this entire time with not noticing that, but I will fix that for everybody here. For anybody that did notice and was just trying to be nice, I don't know. Maybe I just can't trust you. I don't know. But there you go. Cleveland. They're going to be playing Cleveland starting tonight. Still at home. But anyways, we'll see what happens with a guy like Cedric Mullins. We'll see what the playing time looks like for Tyrone Taylor, which will probably go down. There was one tweet from John Harper that I do want to refer to before we get into it. Of when they acquired Cedric Mullins, he talked about some of it impacting Beatty, because McNeil obviously will be taken out of center field. He's not going to play center field for the rest of the year. We've come to a point of where it creates a little bit of a logjam at second base, a logjam at third base. Obviously, Luis Angel Acuna was optioned down to AAA, so that's not in the equation right now. So that pretty much puts you at, well, Jeff McNeil can only play second base right now because you have your center fielder. So that makes a logjam at third base. I don't know. I have no idea how they're going to figure that out. You have Ronnie Mauricio, who has, as a left-handed hitter, been really good. As a right-handed hitter, he has not been. Both Ronnie and Beatty have been rough against left-handed pitching all year. Vientos has been rough against pretty much anyone. So I don't know how they're going to figure that out. We'll see how they do. We all know that I am more pointing towards Ronnie because I think he's been better than Beatty this year. Maybe a little bit smaller of a sample, obviously. But I think Ronnie has shown a lot of promising things this year. And I think his defense is better than Beatty. Not just statistically, but I think his big defense is just a lot better prowess at third base. And his arm's a lot stronger. I'm easy saying not to nitpick here, but Mauricio's throws from first to first base from third need to improve. Yeah, there's been a few inaccurate, wild ones, I will say, but it's strong enough. He's still learning. I'm not going to completely go nuts over it, but I do think that the prowess at third base is a lot better from Mauricio than Beatty. And you can debate a ball and show me all of these highlight plays. The arm is definitely the most important aspect of a third baseman, and Ronnie's got that down. He does. He has the strongest arm out of all three of them. Not just Beatty, but also Vientos. I would go with Ronnie Mauricio for a majority of the playing time. We all know I'm not the biggest fan of Brett Beatty, so I'm not just going to sit here and push for him to be playing every day. He's been rosterable this year, but I think Ronnie's just got more to offer. I do. I really do. Anyways, let's move to this series with Cleveland, and then we will get out of here. Obviously, the Cleveland Guardians have been playing some really, really good baseball recently. It always seems like we're playing a lot of these American League teams when they get going. But anyways, the Guardians are not obviously the best team, but they are still second place in the American League Central. Likely to not make the playoffs, but they still are a 500 team and a team that could definitely give the Mets some fits. We know that they are a pesky team. We know that they have a lot of athleticism on that team, and we'll see what happens. But as for these upcoming pitching matchups that are lined up, Game 1, Sean Manaea will be starting the series opener, looking to continue to ramp up from injury. He'll face the 26-year-old right-hander Slade Ciccone. Slade Cecconi. That's what it's pronounced as. I don't know if that's correct. First pitch is tonight at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. Game 2 will go to Clay Holmes. He'll face the 24-year-old southpaw Logan Allen. First pitch is tomorrow night at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. And the series finale, it will go to the Mets' Iron Man arm, David Peterson, and he will face the young breakout right-hander Gavin Williams. First pitch is a Wednesday afternoon at 1:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. So Mets Guardians, some interleague play once again, and they will be facing this Guardians team that has definitely underperformed to, I think, some expectations. I think everybody kind of expected them to be in that wild card contention, but they haven't really been the best. But pretty much anybody's a contender in that American League, especially in that wild card race. Now, obviously, Carlos Santana came back to this team. He's at first base. Hasn't really gone well for him. The only guy, of course, their top guy, always has been their top guy, Jose Ramirez, who is having just a remarkable season once again. And we all know J-Ram is quietly one of the most underrated players in the game. Not many people talk about him. Last year, I'm pretty sure, he was a home run short of 40, and nobody cared because Shohei Ohtani was doing 50-50. So, again, this is one of the best players in all of baseball. We know how good he is defensively as well. We know how good he is on the base pass. He's got ridiculous pull power. He's a switch hitter. He's a perennial 5-win player. And we all know he's the guy to look out for. Their offense has definitely underperformed. Guys like Nolan Jones has not been great. Lane Thomas has been abysmal for them since coming over from the Nationals a few years ago. I've had some bench guys go in and out. Big Christmas there, or whatever his name is. Noel, he's really struggled this year. They have had, Bo Naylor, their catcher, brother of Josh Naylor, who is now with the Mariners. He has not been done well at the plate, but we know he's a good defensive catcher. And then there's Stephen Kwan, who's had a little bit of a down season, but has still been productive. Power numbers are a little bit down for him, but still has been really good overall. His name was obviously in trade talks. David Fry, who I believe was an all-star for them last year, he has not been good. Their offense has definitely underperformed. Their starting pitching still has been able to consistently pump out starts. They've had pretty much 6 main starters. The Mets will be seeing their best one this year, and that being Gavin Williams, like I said in the series finale. Their bullpen, Emmanuel Clase, is obviously suspended for certain reasons that we won't get into, but Cade Smith has taken over the closer role. He's had another solid year. Jacob Junis has been good. Hunter Gadness, another one. Their bullpen is definitely a strength, but obviously shortens up with Emmanuel Clase out there. I think they traded away. They trade him away, or they trade for him? Hold on. No, they traded for... Wait. No, they traded him away to the Tigers. So Paul Sewald we will not be seeing in this series. But again, this is a very pesky team. Again, we can look at it from the stolen base aspect if you want to. This team, you have... everybody can pretty much steal bases on this team. Almost everybody. They haven't stolen as many bases as they did last year, but they do put the ball in play. They're known to be a very contact-heavy team, and hopefully the Mets are up to the task, and the defense has definitely got to tighten up. So hopefully we don't have any miscues like we have seen sprinkled in and out this year. So Mets versus Guardians, this is a team that the Mets can beat, but this is also a team that could also be pests to this team. This is a team that can definitely come out of nowhere and maybe take 2 out of 3 from you. Hopefully that does not happen. I'm hoping that it doesn't. But this is definitely a Guardians team that the Mets can beat, but hopefully they do. Hopefully there is no, situation where we're talking about a 500 Cleveland team that for some reason the Mets have a really rough time with and don't even seem competitive. You know, this is a good enough team that can match up well with the Mets, but they still should be winning it. And I hope that they take 2 out of 3. I'm going to guess that they're going to take 2 out of 3. I'm going to be hopeful and hopefully that they can bounce back. But we will see what happens there. Guys, let us know your predictions, whether it's in the comments, whether it is in the chat of what do you think is going to happen against Cleveland as the series does start tonight out in Citi Field to finish off this 6-game homestand. And hopefully they can bounce back after this Giants series that was definitely disappointing, especially after just a week ago, they swept this team in their own home ballpark. So, again, not really much to look back on. However, for those of you in here, if you have not liked the stream, we don't really say that much, make sure to like the stream. Subscribe if you have not already for episodes after every single series of games. We're getting into this final stretch. The deadline has passed, and we are getting into crunch time for this team, and there's a lot of departments on this team that has to wake up. My co-host will probably be back next time, but good to be here solo and yap forever here, but eventually I'm going to have to dip out, and that's what I'm going to do as of right now. We're going to end it here. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel. Turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which mainly features my co-host Frank. It looks like he will be back for this series. I had to take over for those last 3 games, but you know, it's what happens. Schedule happens. It's whatever. Follow all of us individually, including my co-hosts who are not here today. And finally, as we get into this final stretch, we play April baseball into September baseball. Let's go Mets, and we will see you guys next time.